cartoons from present and the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, where we smell like rotting beef carcasses. I'm one of your hosts, the Dirt Baron Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever. Who is here with me today?
Henry Gilbert here, and hey, take this $5, please. Just let me podcast.
Okay, and who is our special guest?
This is Thad Komorowski, and I have to stay here with the women.
And who is our very special guest for this podcast?
Bob Jacques, animation director on said cartoon.
Excellent. And today's cartoon is the Ren and Stimpy show cartoon, the Royal Canadian Kilted Yaksmen.
Yes! That's it! We'll eat dirt!
Yes, it's a fantastic cartoon that gave children all around the world the idea to eat dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And Bob was one of the men behind it. There are two Bobs on this podcast. Please don't get confused. But of course, Thad Komorowski, he's been on several of our podcasts, but he is an animation historian. He restores films and animation, and also he is the writer of the behind the scenes, rather, of Ren and Stimpy. Slick Little Monkeys, a book that we heartily recommend. I've read it like 3 times. And of course, Bob Jacques.
Really? You better read some other fucking books.
I've read plenty of books, but we keep coming back to Ren and Stimpy, and it gives me an excuse to reread this. And Bob Jacques, of course, of Carbuncle Cartoons, a long history in animation, and Carbuncle Cartoons animated some of the finest Ren and Stimpy episodes. Welcome, both of you, to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we also had that on our other 2 Ren and Stimpy episodes we did before, where, so if people want like a bigger history of both the Spumco and the games animation years, we go more into detail on those. But,
Yeah.
Well, this one actually sits right in between.
Yeah, definitely. I was just thinking that, so we did Stimpy's Invention, which is purely Spumco. Then we did Hermit Wren, which is purely games. And this one is an idea started at Spumco, but not finished entirely within the Spumco machinery.
No, it wasn't. In fact, I helped finish it at games after it got taken away from Spumco.
And we'll be talking a lot about that in detail, of course, with our normal treatment of Eclipse and a scene-by-scene analysis. But Bob, we really want to talk to you about your career. It is very storied. Your animation history goes back a long time. Please, to get us started, like, where did you begin? Where did the fascination begin, and where did your professional career begin in animation?
Okay, well, it began with Popeye. I was a hardcore Popeye fan when I was a kid. I always loved animation, and I never thought about it as a profession. I had done some stop motion animation when I was a kid. I was a huge fan of course, Ray Harryhausen, as a lot of people are, and King Kong. And then one year I got really sick with mononucleosis, and I was bedridden, and all I could do was watch cartoons all day. So I sort of got hooked on that. And after that, like, I drew when I was a kid, but I didn't draw religiously like some kids do. So I pretty much had to catch up and teach myself how to draw. So I ended up becoming really interested in hand-drawn animation, and I found out there was a course being offered at Sheridan College. So I went to apply for the animation course, and I didn't get in the first time, so I had to work that much harder. And the second time I got in, and that's basically when it started.
When you were a kid growing up watching those Popeye cartoons, could you tell the difference between like a good one or the different eras of Popeye? I'm sure you must have been seeing the televised ones with Brutus in them too.
For sure, yeah. They were showing the Fleischer and Famous Studio Popeye cartoons, and then all of a sudden they disappeared, and they were showing the King Features Popeye cartoons, and you know it was obvious the difference in the animation with the two.
Yeah, and I should note that you and Thad are doing a great Popeye podcast on your Patreon, and I've been following along.
There's a lot of peas there.
Popeye podcast. I'm popping a lot of peas here. And I even bought the, not new, but the first DVD of all the first year of the Fleischer cartoons. It's been a really fun experience to go through those with your commentary.
Well, thank you. As I just said in one of our recorded episodes this morning, you know, we've got to be really grateful someone of Bob's stature is going through these cartoons, because, lots of similar stature animators do the same for Disney, but no one has done it for the Fleischers. So this is important stuff, kids.
They really are textbooks on how to make great cartoons when you look at them closely.
So, Bob, I was looking at your career, and I had I knew the very notable things you worked on, but I had no idea the things you worked on from the 80s that I did see a lot as a kid, like the Dennis the Menace show. Can you talk about your start in the industry, how you got into it, and your early experiences on shows that aren't considered, the best?
Well, I got my start at Nelvana as an assistant animator for a guy that actually worked at Richard Williams' studio. His name was Jeff Short, and he didn't last very long. I think he got frustrated with the Nelvana process, and he went into the commercial department. So I was there for a while, and then I switched over to commercials, the Nelvana commercial department, and I worked with a fellow named Mark Mayerson, and he actually gave me my first break animating little bits of commercials.
Did your career pull you to LA like so many creators, or were you rooted in Canada the whole time?
I was rooted in Canada till the early 80s. And I think the first time I went down to California was in 81. I had met John at one of Reg Hart's screenings. And when we were both in college, I used to show 16 millimeter film, and he would come around and watch the film. So we started to become friends because we had a mutual interest in Golden Age cartoons. Of course, you know a lot about John's history, his obsession with Clampett and whatnot. He went down to California, and he used to call me up occasionally. He said, "Come on, you got to get down here and work." And I was really not very confident at that stage of my career. He was working at Filmation on Mighty Mouse, and he wanted me to come down. And I just wanted to sort of build up my skill level before I went down to Los Angeles. And I finally did it, and I think it was 81. And I don't even know if I got credit for this. We did layout on the Laverne and Shirley and the Army show.
Wow.
Is that on my IMDb?
That is conspicuously absent on your IMDb.
No.
Yeah, well, John was subcontracting work from Hanna-Barbera, layout work. And he did Richie Rich and Laverne and Shirley in the Army. And there might have been one more, but that's the first time I worked down in Los Angeles.
So when is your history with the Ren and Stimpy co-creator, John Kay? Where does that begin for you?
Well, like I said, it began in college. I used to run 16 millimeter cartoons in my breaks and on lunch hours. And so we get a crowd of people coming in, and he would be one of the regulars. So eventually, we became friends. I think he figured I knew how to animate because he saw this piece of animation I did. It was based on a Robert Crumb comic. It was called The Pricksters from the Land of Genitalia.
That sounds like a Crumb comic.
I did this. I animated this dick with arms and legs jerking itself off. And so I think once he saw that, he thought I could animate. And so I think that's when he decided I was good for Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah, I was looking at your bio, and it seems like your jump to Ren and Stimpy was a big move because it seems prior to that you were doing a lot of storyboarding on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I see 41 episodes you're credited with storyboarding.
No, was one episode. And to back up a bit, before Ren and Stimpy, I was animation director on the Harlem Shuffle.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yes, okay. So I think like what a lot of these syndicated shows like Ninja Turtles do, if you storyboard once, you're just in the stock credits for like that season. So maybe that's why. Yeah,
there's a lot of mistakes on IMDb. I try to clean it up every once in a while, but it's like an exercise in futility.
Because someone who knows your career better than you goes back.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
But a Harlem Shuffle was the Rolling Stones video where it was not, I don't know if Spumco had been founded yet, but John Kay was working on that as well, right?
Yes. Well, here's what happened. I went down to visit him for Christmas. Ralph Bakshi had hired him to do some presentation art. Ralph was selling a bunch of stuff, or Ralph was trying to sell a bunch of stuff at the time. And he did these presentation pieces. And then Ralph got, I don't remember all the particulars, but Ralph got the Harlem Shuffle video to do. And he did it through a studio in the valley called Mihan. And that's the same studio where the Bagdasarian's Chipmunk Adventure was produced. And so it was just me and him in a room for a while. And then we freelanced animation to a handful of animators. So basically what we were doing is I was at one desk, John was at the other. John was laying it out and I was timing the whole thing. And then we'd hand out the animation. It'd come back. We'd make changes if necessary. And then I think it was It was hand inked and painted in a studio in Korea. And I think that was Steve Hahn's studio, like Mihan. He had a Korean studio that produced that 3D feature. I forget what it's called. Yeah, it was a Star Wars knockoff. I forget what it was called.
God, it's on the tip of my tongue. I'm sorry. So I want to talk about your involvement with Ren and Stimpy after you get your career started. So I want to make sure my facts are correct. You were working on the pilot, the 1990 pilot for Ren and Stimpy Big House Blues, correct?
Right.
And when you were working on that, what was that process like in terms of the production, the money, and what did you think the future of this?
What money?
I mean, we're going to have a lot of talk about production difficulties and people getting paid and not getting paid in the future in this podcast. But like, what was that like? And did you think like this show had a future given the state of cartoons in 1990?
This is what I'll give you a back history of the whole thing. It's
Sure.
like I got a phone call one day from John saying that they had sold the pilot to Nickelodeon. It was 2 characters based on the Your Gang concept that he had come up with, and it was Ren and Stimpy. So he asked if we would take on the animation for it. And I said, yeah, I can put together a group of people to do that. And so basically what he did was they did the pre-production work, and they just sent the animation to us in Vancouver.
When was Carbuncle like formally formed? Like, what's the official start date of that? Was that it?
I think it was 1989. Kelly and I originally moved out to Vancouver to animate in a friend's studio, and that didn't work out so well. So we quit and we decided to form our own studio. We thought, what the hell, you know what? There seems to be work out there. We could probably contract it. And so it was just coincidence that shortly after we started the studio, John phoned up and asked us if we would do the animation on the Ren and Stimpy pilot.
And how did that production process work, both on the pilot and on the series proper when you were in Canada? What was the pipeline like in terms of what you received and what you produced?
Well, it varied depending on the show. With the pilot, John did all the pre-production there, and it was just animation. So what would happen was we'd get the scenes, we'd animate them, we'd shoot a pencil test, and then send them down for approval. Now, John came up partway through, so it helped ease the production flow. He would approve stuff in the studio, so there was no wait time, and we didn't have to send pencil tests down to Spumco. With the series, it usually started with getting a storyboard, and then he would call up, and he'd pitch the whole thing over the phone. And then, depending on what he had detailed on the storyboard, I would do all the exposure sheets for them, and then I would pitch it and hand it out to the animators.
So you were mostly receiving layout and storyboard from Spumco?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I did want to talk about your history with the show. You worked on it for the first few seasons, and I did want to name the cartoons you Carbuncle worked on. So we have Space Madness, Fire Dogs, Stimpy's Invention, Man's Best Friend, Out West, Sven Hoek, this cartoon, and Son of Stimpy. And again, I think some of the ones I named are the best Ren and Stimpy cartoons in terms of storytelling and animation. What was the production process like in general, keeping in mind that we have all read Thad's book and we know that it was seemingly a nightmare? What was it like to be on the inside of that and not necessarily within Spumco? You, I think, were lucky enough to be on the outside seemingly and away from some certain mercurial forces.
Yes. Actually, it was a blessing to have like 5,000 miles between us. I mean, I hate to say it, but, you know, people at Spumco were treated a lot differently than I was. And, you know, I only had to deal with his wrath on minor occasions. And a lot of times he was, contrary to what some people believe, he was very fair with the amount of retakes we got. We hardly ever got a retake. I think the most we got was in Man's Best Friend. And he came up during Out West, and he was critical about a lot of scenes in Out West, but he said, just keep that in mind for next time.
And you mentioned Man's Best Friend. We talked about it on the previous podcast, I believe. That was the famous band episode that is now widely available. Honestly, no worse than any other thing in Ren and Stimpy, but it felt like a reason for Nickelodeon to fire John Kay. That is a very good-looking cartoon. What were your thoughts about that one in particular, especially in regard to how seemingly no one would ever see it?
Well, I thought it was a waste to throw it in the garbage. At one point, they were going to have it replaced with a leg wrestling sequence, and I actually saw it. It was when I was helping to get Kilted Yaksmen through Metrocell, through the digital ink and paint at Metrocell, and I really didn't want it to go in, so I was really championing for the original cut of Man's Best Friend, but Vanessa kept saying there was too much testosterone in it, and they didn't think it was going to fly with Nickelodeon, and so they obviously canned it for that reason.
Yeah, how much interaction did you have with the execs like Vanessa Coffey?
Nothing, next to nothing. The only time I ever really heard from her was during Sven Hoek, and she called up and she wanted me to recut Sven Hoek. And I said, that's not my place. I really don't feel comfortable doing that. Because John had made this, what we call the bloated version of the episode, and she wanted me to return it to normal, and I just didn't feel that was my responsibility. Bob Camp ended up doing it, and it's not 100%. There's a little bit of the remnants of John's bloated version in there, but it's pretty darn close to what it was originally.
Yeah, you mentioned Metrocell, and from reading Thad's book, I know you had some issues working with them. From a non-professional perspective, this early digital coloring looks pretty good for 1993, especially compared to what was happening at the time. What was your experience with this digital ink and paint that was on several of the Carbuncle cartoons?
When we switched to digital, I thought all our problems are over with ink and paint and camera mistakes. It was just the same thing all over again. So it was frustrating because I had to go in and say, you shot this wrong. This is painted the wrong color. And the guy that was running the company at the time took real offense to it. And I said, look, you're doing a service job here. We're giving you the work the way it was shot. You're making the mistakes. It's not our fault. So eventually he swallowed it and corrected a lot of them, but there's still errors in Ren and Stimpy that make me cringe.
Yeah, I guess it's a different experience for you than for us to go back to these. The flaws that we don't even know about are all too memorable to you.
The flaws people tell me I'm critical for pointing out.
It's your job.
Well, I guess it's different when you're intimate with the animation. You know every frame of it. You know how it should run. And then when you see somebody basically shit on it, you go, what the hell? How disrespectful is that?
I did want to talk about a bit of the behind-the-scenes drama. I mean, you, of course, were on the outside, but you were with the show from the very beginning. What were your thoughts on that? And did you think, this show can't last because of what John is doing?
I just thought it was really tragic. I thought it was horrible to bring something to its knees because of the infighting, but I really don't know how the best way to describe it. It was just like a film noir movie, just spiraling down.
Yeah, I guess us kids didn't know about it at the time, but if you look at the airing dates of these episodes, I was noticing time moved a lot slower for me when I was 11. And in 1993, there was basically one new episode a month, and it was event television. But it was a result of the firing of John Kay and then the finishing of the episodes that were started at Spumpco.
Yeah, well, and when you're a kid, when that was all happening, like Bob and I were, I wasn't reading the trades, I wasn't reading any of that stuff. And I would just hear things through the grapevine of oh, they fired that guy or whatever. And then on top of that, Nickelodeon's promotion department advertised very well to me as a kid when a new Ren and Stimpy came out and what a major event it was.
Yeah, you'll hear an ad in this episode that Henry found for this one because this technically is the season finale like Stimpy's invention was. And then, so this aired in May of 93. There would not be a new Ren and Stimpy until November of 93, so a huge gap. I think we were just used to seeing so many reruns of the show as a kid, but we didn't know why there weren't a lot of new Ren and Stimpys.
Well, the jam-ups were always from the top down. I mean, John Kay was holding up everything. Unfortunately, when they fired him, it carried over to games because, a lot of those guys had his attitude ingrained. I mean, I can't tell you how many Ren and Stimpy episodes were delivered the day of or before it aired.
Well, that's what Roy Smith, wasn't Roy Smith saying that in his interview?
Roy Smith, who was a supervising producer. Yeah, Roy said that. Mike Kim told me that. And
Roy said that they pushed it right to the last date so that they couldn't even make edits on the thing, or they didn't know how much time they had for commercials.
Oh, well, no, what Roy had said was all the shows were various lengths, so they would always have to cobble together old footage or old bumpers, old Dr. Stupids and old log ads.
I had to see that log ad a whole lot of times as a kid.
Me too.
So it would fill out the rest of the 22 minutes or whatever. So, yeah, it was a big burden on Nickelodeon. Not so one that they didn't really suffer with the other shows they were doing.
It's a tragedy that it fell apart like that because, as an animation lover as well, you must have felt a certain sense of pride that you were getting to do like this kind of creative work on such like a creative, like real throwback to classic animation after the 80s.
Laverne and Shirley in the Army.
No.
That's not on Blu-ray.
It was an absolute godsend. In fact, I'm sure Thad wrote this in his book, that when John first pitched it to me, he said, this can be really limited animation. You can put it on 8s, and I thought 8s, that's like exposing one drawing for 8 frames. I thought, what the hell's going through his mind? Because you get the layouts in and you look at them and go, my God, there's so much energy and life in these things. They have to be animated. So what we did was we devised a way of animating where we could really put the animation where it's necessary and then hold when it's not necessary. But at the same time, make the mouths really interesting so that you don't get bored with that hold.
Oh my God, the mouths in this episode, I was just like, my notes are boring because I just were like, my God, the mouth on this character. Look at that mouth.
And I mean, in the beginning scene, we'll talk about it, but I believe the character Jasper, or the Mountie Chief, he's not moving a lot, but his mouth is all over the place. It's great to look at when giving this speech. So
exactly. The whole idea, the whole philosophy behind the way I was trying to direct the Ren and Stimpy animation was to always keep it interesting, because we knew we had limitations. You have to hold, otherwise, the animator doesn't make any money, and the amount of drawings breaks the budget. So you have to come up with inventive ways to keep it within budget. Yeah,
I noticed that. It's a very good looking show, but you do save money if you have someone paint a picture and then have like the cell just be the blinking eyes or something, or like a leech in this episode. I can see a lot of the shortcuts here, even though there are lots of flourishes throughout.
Yeah, and the whole idea is to make those flourishes look great. So, like I was saying, so you stay interested in what you're looking at.
So professionally, what are your highlights of working on the show? Like, what are you proudest of in your history with the Ren and Stimpy show?
Oh, God. It's hard to say.
Yeah, he just sees all the fucking errors in them because it's just like, and he's telling me to look for them too. So now I can't watch the show anymore.
Your eyes get poisoned after a while. Well, it's like watching old cartoons, like I see mistakes in Disney cartoons and I see mistakes in Warner cartoons. Fleischers are just a landmine of mistakes. So sometimes it's hard to watch them, but your eye gets really sharpened to that sort of thing. When I was working overseas in 1988, supervising the syndicated Chipmunk show. And that's when I first learned how to call retakes, because I had to do that before they were sent back to Murakami Wolf. It just poisons your enjoyment of an animated cartoon if there's mistakes there. Anyways, where were we? Trying to figure out, gosh, there's something in every episode that I like. There's a lot of things I don't like because Phil Cartoons just took whatever we did and trashed it.
Yeah, Bob can't watch Space Madness, I don't think. Really.
No, Space Madness is such a train wreck. And they took Stimpy's breakfast tips and just threw it in the toilet. I still got pencil tests for that. And every once in a while, I'll put some pencil tests on Facebook to show people what the scene was supposed to look like before it got thrashed.
Was the Stimpy's Breakfast Tips when his eyes disappeared, or is that a different cartoon?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
That was the animator's joke. He he put corks in the eye sockets, and they painted them black. They thought they were pupils, but there was an eye level that was supposed to go on top of that. And for some reason, the Filipinos decided that the corks were the eyes, and the eyes weren't the eye level, and they decided to leave them off.
Yeah, there was the other mistake in it too with the Muddy Mud Skipper cereal caddy.
Oh yeah. Oh, I don't think they showed the bone hand, did they? That was the joke underneath on the pencil test. It was the product shot. It was a Muddy Mud Skipper cereal bowl caddy, and it was painted on the cereal bowl. Well, somebody in the Philippines thought we made a mistake, and they repainted the background without the cereal bowl caddy, and then they had a Stimpy's hand animated in and put the cereal bowl caddy on, and it was
the caddy blinks.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that does, like, there's a memory of that in my brain.
Yeah.
I just recalled it. I'm like, what is happening?
That did confuse me as a
Yeah.
child.
Well, needless to say, I was aghast when I saw it. I'll just backstory this. When I was supervising Stimpy's Inventions and the Black Hole through ink and paint in the Philippines, I would go from room to room, and I check things during the course of production to make sure that things were getting screwed up too badly. And if they were, I would catch them in advance to going to camera. So I went into this room one day, and there's the painting on the wall. So I grabbed the painting off the wall, and I thought, you know what? I'll just have this reshot in California, and I'll have it edited into Stimpy's Breakfast Tips. All of a sudden, the painting disappeared, and I found out that Bill Ray took it. So it's probably in his collection somewhere in a bunker 6 miles below the Earth's crust.
With all the advancements in, teleconferencing and just email and scanning everything, do you kind of wish you had? Do you think those production issues could have gone a lot smoother if you had that stuff back in?
I don't think so at all.
No.
It still happens today.
No, you.
Bring back a lot of bad memories.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Well, this stuff makes my skin crawl because it's really basic stuff, and if your line of communication is good and you describe things, like I think I'm very clear in describing things with what I want as far as animation goes, but there's the interpretation thing. It's going to people that don't speak the language, and if you get an interpreter that doesn't do their job, who knows what can happen. For example, when I was on the Chipmunk adventure, I would go through a scene and explain it to the animator. Actually, I had to talk to the director. You weren't allowed to talk directly to the animators. So I talked to the director. And so I'd explain this whole thing, and then the translator would take over. And it was like, blah, 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 blah. Hold on a second. I just spoke for 5 minutes. And did you explain everything I said? And she said, yes. I said, are you sure you explained everything I said? She said, yes. So, like you just have to trust that they're doing their job. But, a lot of times I don't think they're getting all the information. We used to get exposure sheets that said, and I always took issue with this, so-and-so character does this, a la Steve Martin. Well, there was no YouTube at the time, so how are they going to know who Steve Martin is?
To fly over a copy of The Jerk.
That was
They
like
act out this character.
Well, that's going back to what Eddie Fitzgerald did. He was referencing Kitty Cornered on his Mighty Mouse layouts, and how the fuck would someone in Taiwan in 1987 know to look at Kitty Cornered?
Well, they wouldn't, and they wouldn't even have access to it.
Yeah, I guess our listeners should know that in terms of the production process, layout was done at Spumco and backgrounds and whatnot. Animation was done at Carbuncle for some cartoons. And then you would then outsource that to the Philippines or Korea or wherever to do ink and paint or MetroCell.
Right, yeah. For the most part, we did all of our in-betweening. Maybe a handful of scenes we let go to the Philippines. But for the most part, we tried to keep it as high as quality as possible, because you don't know what's going to happen when it goes overseas. There's like when I was supervising Stimpy's layout through ink and paint and camera, I spent a good deal of my time just fixing stuff during the day and then going back to the hotel and fixing stuff because a lot of the work was abominable.
So one very granular thing I wanted to talk about is something that comes up a lot in Thad's book, and that is the difficulty of drawing the character Ren. And I once wanted to be an animator. I was once an inspiring artist, and I realized it was too much work. But I would try to draw all the characters as a kid, but I couldn't figure out Ren. And then reading Thad's book 25 years later, I was like, everybody had a problem with Ren. Can you explain like why the character of Ren is so difficult to draw, just from an artist perspective, and if your artist had problems with that character?
Well, with Ren, it's a series of cheats. And I've said this before to people, is that those who draw Ren the best are designers because they understand the way the design works. Now, if you're strictly an animator and you try to rotate it in 3 dimensions, it doesn't work. You run into trouble. And that's why a lot of the Ren and Stimpy sculptures look really odd.
Yeah.
There's some really good sculptures of Stimpy out there, but they've taken liberties with the model, because if you have his nose pointing up like it regularly is in the model, and you try to rotate him in 3D, the nose blocks his features. It blocks his eyes, so you can't read the expression.
Yeah, Stimpy always struck me as having somewhat consistent anatomy, but Ren is almost like a cubist character in terms of just how different he looks in every shot while maintaining the same features.
Yeah, I agree. It's a matter of, when you move it around, you learn to juggle those features so that it looks right, or it looks right for the scene.
So I wanted to know your thoughts on specific talents you worked with at Spumco. Like, did you have any artists whose work you really loved when it came in? Any certain? I know Chris Riccardi was a big part of this episode, and he was a newer director at the time. I believe this is his first work where he's credited as a co-director.
No, he was on Dog Show.
Oh, Dog Show. Yes, I apologize for that. And of course, we'll talk about it throughout the our discussion of the episode. But Thad in his book said you were a big help in getting this done. And Chris went on, RIP, of course. We discussed him on our Herman Wren episode, but he was still learning how to be a director at this point in time.
Sorry, what was the question again?
I was just asking about, your thoughts on any specific artists at Spumco, anyone whose work you really love to see come in.
Well, of course, Chris Riccardi. I mean, his work was always amazing. Mike Kim. Mike Kim is a powerhouse drawer. I've always admired the way he draws. I think a lot of them were really great. Fontanelli was good.
Yeah, I was wondering about your thoughts on Chris, because I know the games animation was I really like those episodes, but it is a much different style. They were going for a much flatter style, especially Chris. And I know from listening to your podcast, you're not a big fan of UPA cartoons. So I was wondering, like, Hermit Wren is really kind of going for that flatter, a more UPA style. And I was wondering if you had to fight Chris on any of that stuff at that time, because he seemed to be like the guy who was spearheading that new art direction on Ren and Stimpy, and of course his future cartoons very much so.
No, sorry, not in Kilted Yaksmen. No,
okay.
He was still drawing pretty solid. In fact, I think, if I recall correctly, most of it was already finished in layout when he took over. Didn't Mike Fontanelli start this cartoon?
Well, first it was Chris's, and then Chris got fired, then Fontanelli took it over, and then Chris took it over at Games, and he said he redrew a lot of it.
Yeah, definitely. He did redraw a lot of it. I could tell the differences, because you'll crack open a scene folder and there'd be one style of drawing, and then, the next drawing might be another style of drawing. So, and that was consistent throughout the whole episode.
Yeah, I noticed, and of course we'll talk more about it when we get to the episode discussion, but this episode seems to have the most credits up front, which might be a testament to just how the change in production happened. Like, yeah. I think there's like 45 seconds of names in this episode, and of course your name is there too.
Of course, there's a backstory for that. It started out to be an 11-minute episode, so maybe the credits were a way to, expand the episode without it looking too fat.
Yeah, it is an odd episode, and I think the games animation era would very much make the format 2 11-minute ones for the most part. But in this era, as we discussed earlier, cartoons are very odd lengths. Like this one is maybe like a 15 or 16-minute cartoon, and then there is a Powdered Toast Man bit where it's some of it is clips, but then some of it is new carbuncle animation, and then there is that's
the one that That's the one that Kelly directed, correct?
Yeah,
Bob?
Kelly directed that. There's a story behind that. Gosh, I don't know how far back to go in this. We were supposed to get a visit to Anthony.
Oh.
Right from the beginning. John said, this one's for you. He pitched a story. We were all excited about it. And then Jim Ballantyne phones up one day and says, you're not getting it. And I go, what the fuck? We were waiting for this episode. So we didn't have very nice words to each other. And he said, no, look, you have to get Kilted Yaksmen. That's it. You're taking it. It was an 11-minute episode originally, as I said. But he said, can you make this any longer? Because we need to fill out a time slot. And he said, we have a couple of shorts. So we got the Powdered Toastman short. And then I think the other short was a rough draft short.
Mm-hmm. The
Sugar
sod pops.
Or something like that. Basically, it was dumped in my lap. And he said, make it work.
I would have loved to have seen the Carbuncle version of Visit Anthony. I think that's a great episode, too, as it is. Now I just imagine what you guys would have done with the terrifying father confrontation.
Yeah.
Well, part of the reason why Bob didn't get that episode is because the cartoon ran over budget so much they couldn't afford to have it animated in Canada because nobody could draw that dad. I mean, that's John's gift. He'll design characters that only he and maybe about 2 other people on Earth can draw. and Jim Smith, of course, left the show with John. And so the only people that could do a scene with Anthony's dad were Bob Camp, Mike Kim, and Chris Riccardi. So you've got them. You've got the 3 best artists at the studio working on all of these scenes while doing everything else on the cartoon as well. I always heard the rumor that cartoon cost $1 million.
Wow.
So. Holy shit. That's the first time I've heard that.
It's on there. It's on the screen. You can see just how well it's done. But I would have loved to see the Carbuncle version of that cartoon. But what were your memories in general of this episode's production? Did it run smoothly as other things would?
This actually ran pretty smooth. I mean, we had to tell the animators partway through this was the last episode. I was on the edge. I actually wanted to do more Ren and Stimpy because they were hanging big carrots in front of us. And I thought it wasn't a good business decision to cut it off. But Kelly and I decided that the fact that we were basically given this opportunity to do this great show, it was just better just to politically just part from everybody, not have to be involved in the fighting that followed. Am I answering the question?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I did want to get to the... so you ended your run on Ren and Stimpy with the end of season 2, and I was wondering... I was kind of afraid to broach that topic. I didn't know how difficult that was, but you brought it up, and that's interesting because it was a very politically charged time for... Within that company, there was 2 sides, definitely, and you had to pick one almost publicly to be on.
Yeah, and we didn't feel it was fair to either. To be involved, and we didn't take sides, and we parted as friends, and I kept up relationships with a lot of the games people over the years. Subsequently worked with some of them like Chris Riccardi. And
were you still a viewer after that? And what were your thoughts on that new direction the show took without John and Spumco?
Well, it was different. I liken it to when the Fleischers lost Popeye. There's the there's the Fleischer Studio Popeye and the Famous Studio Popeye. It's like, I like them both. They're different, but there's certain things that were good about the games Ren and Stimpy's as opposed to the Spumco Ren and Stimpy's. So, I didn't religiously watch them. They were hard to see because they weren't running in Canada. So I think, actually, Mike Kim sent me a tape of a bunch of them. He asked me to time, what's that episode?
Ren's Better Half. He wanted you to animate that.
Yeah, and we were partway through Baby Huey at the time. I really wanted to do it, but I was already overworked, and we couldn't handle it.
Yeah, one of the reasons I'm glad Thad's book came out is it does kind of disrupt the narrative that the 20 Spumco episodes or whatever are the only good Ren and Stimpy's, where I watched the show after that and there were a lot of great highlights, and Thad's book does a great job of saying, here are the very good games cartoons worth watching.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also, the narrative, John was, the only person who was artistic on the show, or, I really appreciated that Thad Thad's book really explained how many amazing artists were involved in it beyond just the man's name who's at the very front of the show.
Well, absolutely. And when I pitched the idea of the book to Thad, I said, it's really important to give these guys a voice. Up until that point, nobody had a voice. It was all controlled by John.
Yeah, and I really hope that now the narrative has been thoroughly shattered thanks to John K's career after Ren and Stimpy and certain personal details about his life. I'm really hoping that we see another release of the episodes with commentaries featuring people other than him that aren't just trashing the other artists' work for 22 minutes at a time. Those are so painful to listen to as someone who really wanted behind-the-scenes stuff, which is why Thad's book was great, because it's like, this book is not just one man screaming about, that's from the boards! That drawing's too flat!
Those DVDs were painful when they were new to me. They were painful when they were new, just because I was like, this is just so mean, and I didn't even know. I was fully the most I knew about it was just the John K version of events, and so.
Well, I'll tell you something about that. I was told this by Jim Gomez. I don't know if Bob had heard it from him, but the first set of the games cartoons are like that, and the DVD producers found out, it was like, wait a minute, you guys didn't actually work on these? If you want more money, Jen, you got to get someone who actually worked on them. And he did call Jim Gomez, which Bob was frankly shocked to hear. He had the nerve to call up Jim Gomez all those years later. And Jim's like, well, are you going to pay me to do the commentaries? No. Well, you're getting paid, right? Crickets. All right, thanks, Johnny, for me another 14 years.
God, yeah, I mean...
But that's why Bill Ray is on those discs.
Yeah, I was going to say, he is the saving grace of the later discs, because at a certain time, he will just stop John and be like, come on, you got to say something nice. And Bill Ray is a very talented man, of course.
After he lost the show to games, we would visit him on occasion in L.A., and this was a horrible experience. He'd put in a videotape and run it for us, and go through it scene by scene and tell us what was wrong with it. And eventually I said, John, you got to let go of this stuff. It's torturing you. You know, it's killing you. But he seemed to delight in doing that.
That's sad. That's sad.
Yeah. I believe he still carries that grudge to this very day. And I don't know if you want to talk about the second very short-lived Ren and Stimpy and your work on that. I think most people are very ambivalent about that. But do you have any thoughts about your time there?
Oh, that was horrible.
Maybe you could just say you wish you didn't do it.
Yeah, I wish I didn't do it. You know what I really missed about that second run of Ren and Stimpy? Bob Camp. I really realized during that period how much Bob had contributed to Ren and Stimpy, because it was just pure John. And I don't know how much influence Vincent had or Jim Smith or Eddie, but you know, like I always thought of, and this is way over exaggerating, but just to use as an example, I often thought of John and Bob as Lennon and McCartney. You know, they kind of balanced each other out. They come up with good ideas, and it was always a combination of the two that made the stuff really sing. So when they were split, you could really notice the difference, because it was the primetime Ren and Stimpy was just really mean-spirited, and I had trouble just reconciling myself with that, because a lot of the things were just torturous. Like when and I used to get detailed notes about it, like pulling the legs out of the caterpillar or the centipede or whatever it was.
Even when I had the DVD, I was like, I can't watch this whole thing. Even then,
I was going to say the same thing, not to linger on this topic for too long, but yeah, Bob Camp was the secret sauce that was missing. And I remember getting the DVDs, and most of those didn't air on TV. And I never thought I would turn off a Ren and Stimpy because I was getting bored with it. But there was one, I think, like 40-minute cartoon, and I was like, I can't even sit through this anymore. It's too much. It's too much.
Yeah, I can't watch them anymore. I do watch them on occasion, just because if I'm trying to pull clips for something. I think the crew I had on Ren Seeks Help was a really great crew. We didn't do the whole thing. Some of it was done in Korea, but the part that was done at Carbuncle in Vancouver, I think they did a really good job.
Yeah, I think Ren Seeks Help is the one salvageable cartoon from that run. It's the one I would actually watch again, but it's hard. It's really hard to look at the other ones. So, Bob, I wanted to talk about your work after Ren and Stimpy. We were talking a bit before the record about this, but you've obviously done a lot since then, and there are some great highlights here. One thing I wanted to highlight is a cartoon that I don't know if all of our listeners have heard about, but you worked on a brief Baby Huey reboot that essentially was just a different... It was like Baby Huey through the Ren and Stimpy lens. And I remember watching this show in the mid-90s, and lots of things were, quote-unquote, ripping off Ren and Stimpy, but I was like, this is the perfect Ren and Stimpy sort of substitute. If there's not enough Ren and Stimpy in the world, I could watch this. And I didn't know the people who made it. I was like, how are they getting so close to the Ren and Stimpy vibe? And then years later, I find out it's you.
Gosh, I don't know what to say. Well, when we had the meeting with Harvey originally, that's basically what they wanted. Was that's why they hired us. They wanted that sensibility.
And you definitely...
Well, yeah, that was the period when everybody was trying to cash in on the Ren and Stimpy gravy train. I mean, even Disney, they did their Schnookums and Meat.
Yes.
And they hired Ren and Stimpy people for that.
Well, yeah, and we had a meeting with Disney. They wanted us to animate it, but they weren't willing to pay the same amount of money per footage that Ren and Stimpy was.
That sounds familiar, being a Disney worker.
That they didn't want to pay the same money as Ren and Stimpy did.
I guess most people don't remember how truly big Ren and Stimpy was, that even Disney had their own version of it for about a year that will not be on Disney Plus anytime soon.
No.
Well, I'll tell you, we used to regularly get people sending us stuff saying that we want this to be like Ren and Stimpy. I can't remember the studio that sent this to us. Maybe Colossal. They had this concept about 2 stink bugs or something like that, and they wanted to make it like Ren and Stimpy, and they were asking if we were interested in doing it. And I don't remember the rest of the details after that. It's really foggy, but I just thought, wow, everybody's trying to cash in on this show.
Do you have any highlights or personal highlights of your work you think people should check out? I mean, obviously, the Ren and Stimpy episodes Carbuncle did are fantastic, but you've done a lot in the almost 30 years since then.
I guess.
Well, come on, Bob. You animated the first Family Guy chicken fight. You directed it.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
It's a historic moment.
No,
come on.
It is.
I hate that show.
Good fight, though.
I couldn't wait to get off of it. Well, I'll tell you what it was like. It's like being a professional writer and somebody commissioning a magazine article and then telling you can't use this word, you can't use this word, you can't use this word, you can't use this word. And then you end up with 2 words and you're supposed to make an article out of it. And that's what I felt like on Family Guy. It's like all the tools that I had at my disposal in animation. Oh, sorry, you can't use that. Sorry, you can't use that. Oh, sorry, you can't use that. And I was really stupid going into it because they sent me a videotape. I had a choice of 2 things I could do. I could either go on Mission Hill or Family Guy. And I looked at Family Guy and I went, hey, this show needs help. Stupidly and naively, I said, this show needs help. So finally, when I got onto Family Guy, they started reading all the rules. And basically the storyboard for my show was, I think it was completely redone except for the establishing shot. And at that point, I realized what a horror story primetime animation was. I've never experienced anything like that in kids' TV.
Wow. Yeah. We just did a podcast series about Mission Hill, and it is a great looking show that probably would have welcomed you into the fold and your creative choices.
Well, at least they had more animation in it. They didn't mind taking risks from what I've seen on some of the episodes. But the Family Guy is so formulaic. And I didn't know the formula. And I don't work well with formula.
Well, and Mission Hill, when we interviewed the supervising director of that, Lauren McMullen, she's a big Fleischer fan. She loves the rubber hose stuff. So I wish you could have taken that now instead. Though then, I know you don't remember the chicken fight very well, but it is like one of the most beloved by Family Guy fans moments in the show. So
yeah, I had little to do with it. Like I remember timing it out for an animatic, and that's about it.
So Bob, before we get to the episode, can you mention any sort of work you might have done that has been overlooked compared to Ren and Stimpy? Things you want people to check out if they can?
I would say the Baby Huey shows. We had a lot of fun. It was kind of a troubled production, but we had a lot of fun working on that. We got to write a lot of the stories, sneak in a lot of dirty jokes.
That is true. I was looking at some of them on YouTube, so I'm not sure where you can find
he
this.
had Papa Duck get sodomized.
That is true.
Oh my God.
I can't believe that got through. I really can't believe that got through.
Only in 90s kids TV can that happen.
Never again.
Never again.
Never again.
There was another one where Hugh goes into the ocean and pees in it, and then a starfish gets mad because it's peeing in his home. So he beats up Papa Duck. And then the starfish ends up pissing on Papa Duck's head. And I thought for sure that was going to get cut out. And the only comment was, we don't like the pee being yellow, change it to another color. So we made it green, and it got through.
Simply, this is why the 90s cartoons are better.
Oh.
You can have pee on the screen, just don't make it yellow. And with that comment, we'll take a short break and then get into our full discussion of the Royal Canadian Kilted Yaksmen.
The Yaksmen are coming! The Yaksmen are coming! Nickelodeon presents the world premiere of a never-before-seen Ren and Stimpy at a revolutionary time. Tomorrow at 7/6 Central, see our heroes Ren and Stimpy as they battle the elements in their mission of glory. See them grapple with the Kodiak marmoset. See them wear skirts. It's Ren and Stimpy as the Royal Canadian Kilted Yaksmen. It's a brand spanking new Ren and Stimpy at a special time. Tomorrow at 7/6 Central, only on Nickelodeon.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the break for this What a Cartoon episode all about Ren and Stimpy. We're recording this in the vast, barren wasteland known as America, and I'm one of your hosts for this one, Bob Mackey, who is here with me for the break.
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert, and I also enjoy when the sand goes up my skirt.
And speaking of breaks, there was some breaking news probably 3 weeks after we recorded the podcast that Comedy Central is rebooting Ren and Stimpy. So at this point in time, in this recording of this ad, we have no idea what that will become, who is involved in it. But just to let you know, that is why we didn't talk about it during the podcast, because there was no news of it then.
Yes. So, I mean, if you're like, why are you talking about John Kane not being invited back to this? Or also the release of the Ren and Stimpy documentary, which our friend Thad had a scathing review of, like, in either of this case, like, why didn't you talk about this? It's because it wasn't out yet. But this is us addressing it now, and honestly, I'm sure we'll do another Ren and Stimpy episode.
Yes, maybe even one of the new episodes on Comedy Central. When will that air? Because over 3 years ago, they announced Animaniacs is coming back, and, clock's still ticking on that one. So
where's that new Rugrats, too?
Exactly, yeah. Apparently, they exist somewhere, but if we'll find them, who knows? But as for us and what we do, if you want to support the show and get all these episodes 1 week at a time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. If you sign up for $5 a month, you'll get just that, but also access to everything behind the $5 paywall, and that includes everything we've done for the past 3+ years. You'll get access to immediately the second you sign up. That is so many podcasts, over 100. It includes all of our limited miniseries. That includes Talking Critic, Talking of the Hill, Talking Futurama, Talking Mission Hill was our most recent one, and we'll have a new one coming up in the fall of 2020 just for patrons. That's a ton of bonus episodes along with interviews, end-of-season wrap-ups, and deleted scene specials for Talking Simpsons, and so much more behind the $5 paywall at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. And if you sign up for $10 a month, you'll get all the $5 stuff, but also access to one mega-long podcast once a month that is just for patrons of that level or higher. And Henry, what is going on there?
Why, you're talking about the What a Cartoon Movie podcast. Listeners on the free feed, you've probably heard the extended preview you get each month, but if you'd like to hear the full, often over 4 hours long discussion of animated feature films we do each month, you gotta go up to the $10 level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. If you sign up now, you get an entire back catalog, over 100 hours of close to 2 years of What a Cartoon movies, too numerous to list, but I mean, hey, if you like this chat of 90s animation, I bet you'd like our Beavis and Butthead Do America one, or some of our recent ones too, like this month coming Ghost in the Shell, the 1995 anime classic, The month before that, the big old Disney flop, The Black Cauldron, and so many others that we have talked about. Aladdin, A Goofy Movie, Akira, they're all there. All your favorites. So sign up at the $10 level to get all that $5 stuff plus the monthly What a Cartoon Movie today at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
That's it for this break. We'll let you get to our full discussion of the Royal Canadian Kilted Yaksmen.
Our country reeks of trees. Our yaks are really large, and they smell like rotting beef carcasses. And we have to clean up after them, and our saddle sores are the best. We proudly wear women's clothing, and searing sand blows up our skirts.
Just about this episode, I mean, Carbuncle is a Canadian studio. Like, did you feel any Canadian pride doing such a Canadian episode as this one?
Not really. I didn't really, like I said, I didn't really want to do this episode at first. I wanted to visit to Anthony. So I should add, though, that, and I don't think I said this before, that this episode, we pretty much knew this was going to be our last episode. So we thought, this is our swan song. So we really put everything into it.
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, every Ren and Stimpy episode of this era felt like event television because there was 1 or 2 new ones a month, but this was the season finale, and it felt like they were trying to build it up to a Stimpy's Invention level of prestige.
Yeah, I think the Nickelodeon promotion department did that. Like, in my memory, I thought this was a SNCC premiere, but when I was trying to find the commercials for it, because I wanted to be like, oh, and this aired on SNCC with this episode and this episode, but then when I found the ad for it, it was like, no, during SNCC, they told you tomorrow at 7 p.m. is going to be the Yaksmen special.
And I was wondering if that was a promotional thing or they didn't have the episode yet.
See, we never got any of that stuff in Canada, so I don't know how well publicized this stuff was.
Oh, it was highly advertised.
Yeah, I remember watching this episode with my mom and grandma.
Holy crow.
My grandma wasn't disgusted. But she would say, oh, sheesh, every so often. I don't think she was ready for Ren and Stimpy.
Something that's really interesting is one of our patrons, Kyle Carosa, he did a podcast about this ages ago, and he was saying that when he first saw this, he thought they had made a Ren and Stimpy feature.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
Well, also, my mom loved Ren and Stimpy. Like, I think especially the boomer nostalgia kind of stuff that, like all the commercials, the log commercial she loved. Like, I think it was honestly more aimed at her than me, the series.
That was Kelly and I split that. She did the first part, and I did this. She animated the first part, and I did the second part.
Yeah. But I was curious. Like, this reminded me of the Bugs Bunny short "Fresh Hair," where Elmer's a Mountie. Especially some of the times where Stimpy looks like really fat and stupid. I'm like, this reminds me of Elmer, and that's
no. That was a first reeling cartoon. It wouldn't have been referenced on Ren and Stimpy.
Okay.
Not allowed.
No, first reeling was taboo.
So, this starts off with a great title card. I missed the era of beautiful title cards, and this one is one of a few with some live-action footage in it. Mm-hmm. Sven Hoek had that, and this one does too, except that it is a live-action flag. I love how it's treated to look like old footage. I'm guessing that was filmed in L.A.
Bob Biggs, didn't you see them filming it?
It was on top of the building roof on Doheny and Sunset.
It's interesting for how prominent that is in the title card. I don't think you see that flag a lot elsewhere in the cartoon.
No, you see it at the very end.
It's true. I do love the design. It is gently insulting.
If you look carefully, Chris Riccardi's initials are prominent.
Oh, okay.
That's right. Yeah.
CR.
Yeah.
And I wanted to give one dirty behind-the-scenes story about it. It's in my book. But since we're talking about the credits, Bob gave me the paperwork, so I know it's true. John was fighting very hard legally to get Chris Riccardi's name off of this.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. So let's talk about the credits. I believe so. Is this true from your book, Thad, that John Kay is listed as co-director, but he has very little to do with this cartoon?
Bob wouldn't know the answer better than I do, but I believe he was just involved with the board pitch and supervising it. And since his voice is Ren is there, that might be the extent of his involvement.
So yeah, this a lot of credits on this episode, a lot of padding up front. We see story by John Crifalusi, Bob Camp, Jim Gomez, Vincent Waller, storyboard by Chris Riccardi, directed by John Kay and Chris Riccardi, background color design by Bill Ray, and animation direction by you, Bob Jakes. So we learned up front why there are so many credits, because this cartoon needs to last 22 minutes and it can't quite get there. But God knows they tried with that opening title sequence. But yeah, the opening starts with this great pan across this great painting, always very nice background paintings on Ren and Stimpy. Billy West as the larger-than-life narrator talking about the story beginning thousands of years ago in 1856. It's all about the true-life trauma of the legendary Royal Canadian Kilted Yaksmen. And I love how Billy says, Canadian!
Yeah, that it reminds me on the Futurama commentary. It's him and Maurice LaMarche are both on it, and Maurice LaMarche is Canadian, and Billy West jokes about how he loves to say the word Canadian because it pisses off Canadian people, and he feels like he's even just kind of elbowing Maurice, like,
And
have you ever spoke to anybody that's from Toronto?
Yeah, a few people.
Yeah, I think so.
When they say they're from Toronto.
Oh, I'll have to remember that.
Yeah, I'm from Toronto.
That's how you speak their language. But we see their motto. It's not "we always get our man," it's "we always get our butts kicked." And I think this episode might have instilled like an anti-military vibe in my brain, because it's saying, like, if you sign up for service, it's awful. You'll die for people you'll never meet, and then you'll go to hell.
Yes.
And you won't even be buried.
Well, and also that your superiors will send you to death while they have their fun. Yeah.
So we meet the Mountie Chief. We first see him as the shadow on the wall. It turns out he's a very small dog.
Great guy.
And again, that is the character model of Jasper, who I believe you had a lot of fun with in Big House Blues.
Right, yeah, I did a bunch of animation with Jasper.
And his mouth tends to like move outside of his face. It's really great.
Oh God, those. As a kid, I think I love those kind of things because they reminded me of like some of my favorite Rocky and Bullwinkles as a kid had that same kind of like mouth movement on it. Especially, I remember a few Fractured Fairy Tales that had that in it. So.
And yeah, great animation on this character. Like, I think the speech he's saying isn't necessarily like that funny, but just his overacting and his melodrama, especially like moving his head back and forth for glory, things like that are just great touches. And also delivered by Harris Pete. We heard him in the Hermit episode, and that line is in my head like, "What's with all these imaginary friends?" I keep thinking of that over and over.
Who animated the speech, Bob?
I think Ron Zorman did most of that, and I think Scotty Mons did one of the scenes, but I think that was mostly Ron Zorman. You know what? Damn, I could have got the draft for this. I think Devin has a copy.
So let's hear a bit of the speech. It's about like a 2-minute long speech, I think, up front, but here is a bit of the end of that speech with Ren and Stimpy volunteering.
You'll go down in history. This nation shall be forged in your blood. Not everyone gets the chance to sacrifice their lives for such a noble cause. You can make this land a great place for our children and their children's children. There is a great wilderness out there that you must tame.
Why?
So that future generations will live in freedom. Think of it, man. I can see it now. 2 color TVs in every home. A curling rock in every garage. And all because selfless men like you laid down your lives for the Kilted Yaksmen. Don't do it for yourself, man. Do it for people you'll never even meet.
Please let us sacrifice for our country. Me and Ren, our lives are cheap.
So we were talking about just how great the mouth movements are, and it must have been a real treat to get these larger-than-life tracks with Harris Pete, Billy West, and John Kay just screaming their lungs out in these interesting readings from all of them.
Yeah, all the voice work was inspirational. It was really, really, really helped the animators grab the feeling of the moment.
But like Billy West can do those big things in so many shows, but to see the animation that so like grabs on the please and the teeth just like pop out of the face. Oh God. And that camera pan over all the Mounties, like it's a great double joke where it's like you see that they're big and then it pans down like here's Ren and Stimpy, they're so much smaller than these guys. And then then it zips right over to their boss who is smaller than them.
That's great. Yeah, it's a great visual gag. And we see Stimpy bribing the chief with $5, which having rewatched all the Ren and Stimpys not too long ago, the promise of $5 is like the universal bribe in the Ren and Stimpy universe.
That was a joke that I heard early on when shortly after I met John, he would use that. Here's $5. I don't know what it was in context of, but
yeah, it popped up so much on the show, it seemed to be like an inside joke.
Yeah, it wasn't. That's exactly it, an inside joke.
They accept Ren and Stimpy into the Royal Canadian Kilted Yaksmen.
Oh, hold on a second.
Go for it.
I don't know if you notice this, and I probably shouldn't be saying this, but when Stimpy reaches into Ren's kilt,
yeah,
I was going to say
he jerks him off.
He is jerking him off. That was my note. I'm like, he's giving him a hand job. That is 100%.
I forget what the sound effect was on that.
Well, another funny drawing I did like was after when he's drawn as a Dalmatian, so when he turns back and goes after your children's children, like he is drawn in a cross-eyed, silly-looking way that fits for the breed of dog of Dalmatian too, which I love.
Yeah, they're accepted into the force, and of course, this is when we get the line where it's like, we'll have to bear the burden of staying home with the women, and of course, classic Ren and Stimpy babes.
The sexy dames, yeah.
Yeah, that was a layout drawn by Lynn.
I thought so, yeah, the classic Lynn Naylor cute girl.
Yeah, I was thinking it was either had to be Lynn or somebody copying her style very well, but all the shots of Stimpy's like tearful patriotism after hearing the speech, like there's some great like Stimpy upper lip wiggling in this whole episode. I also, Bob, I was curious, was there like a general rule about when Stimpy would have dots on his muzzle and when he wouldn't?
No, it was arbitrary. It's like Ren's tail. It's just, if it was there, we'd use it. If it wasn't, we wouldn't draw it on.
And
so the model fluctuated. It depended on it depended on whose hand it went through.
And I'm sure we'll talk about throughout this episode. We already done it, like just specific drawings, but like the kind of wild take of Ren realizing he won't get to stay behind with the women. He's jamming his hands into his mouth and bug-eyed. Is that like a Chris Riccardi drawing, or did that come from you guys?
Well, no, that would have been the layout.
Okay.
The only extra drawing we did was to make extra gags. Okay. We were obligated to use the layout.
Right. And that's just a fantastic drawing, and there's so many great wild takes in this cartoon.
Yeah, there's also I don't know if there's an official name for it, but it's when Ren is with his mouth hanging down, he looks like a balloon, really, like those, like with his lips flapping down. I just love that standard Ren pose too.
And I did like the Jasper stuff with the chest inflating over the face like a balloon, so full of pride. But so Ren
the pained look on all the men's faces that they have to be with the women, like, oh god, ooh, god, that makes the dames even funnier in that shot.
I do like that pose. But yeah, so Ren and Stimpy are off in search of the lost barren wasteland. A great goal for this very aimless episode where it just ends when it ends. I feel like in terms of animation, it is some of the best ever. It might even be the best ever. In terms of storytelling, I think it's a little weaker than Stimpy's Invention in terms of going for the big finale, because I honestly feel like, I don't know what you guys think, the song should be at the end of the show, because after the song, it is sort of just like downhill until the very end. There are some great peaks in animation, of course, but in terms of storytelling, the episode just ends when they're done with the story.
Yeah, it just kind of peters out.
Yeah.
Anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Well, my big issue with it is there isn't enough Canadian culture in it, not nearly as much as there should be. I mean, I think John is ashamed of being Canadian. I mean, this should have been the opportunity to really celebrate it with lots of in-jokes, but I guess he didn't he, as Chris Riccardi told me, he just saw this as a B episode. So
we only have one mention of curling in the beginning, so not a lot of culture here.
I never got that joke as a kid. I should say as a 10, I was 10 when this aired, and I guess I knew that Canada was a place. I grew up in Florida, but I mean, I knew it was like a place on a map, but I don't think I knew anything about Canadian culture. Like, I probably would have seen the SCTV sketches about Canada and been like, well, what's this crazy place they made up? Like,
this can't be real.
I was an ignorant child, so this gave me small amounts of. I guess I figured there were marmosets all over Canada from watching this.
I've been there several times. I've not encountered one. But yeah, we get this great montage. There's not a lot of clips in this episode, by the way, because so much of this is just carried on the animation alone, not necessarily the voice acting. But like, there's this great montage of just the hardships they're facing. Ren is like just weakly chopping at this tree with a giant axe. They're riding through inclement weather as it gets worse and worse. The hailstones are just collecting on their body.
I like the hailstones collect the most in like Stimpy's crotch area.
Speaking of crotches, Bob, why don't you tell him about Ren pinching a loaf?
Are we? That's part of that.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
montage, isn't it? Yeah. Well, all we got was one drawing, so I thought, Jesus, if we're going to expand on this episode, we have to do something with this scene. And so, this is from visiting outhouses as a kid. It's like, you're sitting there waiting for it to come out. And then, I thought, well, it'd be a great touch if we just have him strain a bit. So I had, the animator was Chris Sauvé. So I just had him put a light stagger on the eyes. And then, I don't know if you guys have ever been into any of these outhouses, but they're full of bugs and spiders. Mm-hmm. So after that, we added the spider just racing up his back, trying to get away from whatever's coming down. And then I asked Chris Sauvé to, because when you encounter these things, sometimes they're real creepy. So I had him animate it really slowly walking, giving it that really creepy feel as he's walking up Ren.
I think it did make me slightly afraid of that in porta potties, visiting county fairs. Like, it's probably full of spiders.
Seeing it now, I couldn't believe you guys got away with, like, there's a sound effect of a plop, just so you know what definitely happened there.
I was kind of shocked 27 years later, just like, oh, he just pooped, he squeezed out a turd on screen, and we can't see it. One thing I like seeing is just like references to old episodes in like season 2. So we see Nurse Stimpy treating Ren, and that was like a famously troubled episode, right, Thed?
Yeah, and Bob worked on that one a little bit too.
Yeah, I actually timed a lot of episodes that I don't get credit for. In fact, when the first season started up, they were already in trouble, and Kelly and I went down to California and tried to help get it out quicker because, of course, we had hired animators and they were waiting for work to come. So the only way to get it coming faster was to go down and help them get it out faster.
Yeah, it was not, as a kid, I loved seeing Nurse Stimpy come back because not that even it was one of my all-time favorite Ren and Stimpy, so it's a great episode, but I think as a kid I came to like it less because it was rerun so much. I felt like it was the one I saw the most in season 1. And also, as a kid, you don't, I guess when they were new, they would advertise it, but you'd still, as an 8-year-old, I was thinking like, what if it was new today? I'll watch it and just see if it is new. One Ren covered in leeches, like, that's just a great painting of just this gang. Like, he's dead there already.
Not having a great time on this journey, and finally just struck by lots of arrows. Last one's just right in the head.
Just right in the head.
Well, that was one of the gags we added to. Originally, just all the arrows came in, and then I added the last one, so all the arrows came in. And then there's a pause, and then one comes in and hits him, and he staggers back and forth.
But Stimpy's face never changes the whole time. But again, another thing that shocked me, knowing what they can and can't do on at least American aired kids cartoons, like an arrow, many arrows fully entering the bodies of the main characters, including right in the head. I really appreciate it as a thing you wouldn't see now.
So in our next clip, we meet one of the many wildlife species of Canada.
I told you, marmoset.
Yes, Canada's most fearsome predator. The Kodiak marmoset is the world's largest, smallest primate.
My God, he's killing us. Help! Help!
Once again, just great animation of this tiny creature pummeling Ren in the face with his huge muscles.
I also like the kind of stacking of them. You have Stimpy on the bottom, then Ren above him, and then the tiniest thing on top of him, basically punching Stimpy through Ren. Even like, because Ren is just this like damp rag.
He's killing us.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think there were two layouts for that. One with the anticipation of the punch, and the other with the punch. And to get Ren to read, we actually had to stretch his head up so that when he yells, help, you could actually see it. Otherwise, it would get lost in all that, all the posing down at the bottom of the screen. So we had to move it up so that it would be silhouetted.
it reads much better. The punching is even funnier.
Definitely, yeah. And in the next scene, they are just covered with insect bites and being just tailed by all these mosquitoes. And this is I think this drawing is in your book, Thad, the great drawing of Ren grabbing the canteen. He drinks it, bees fly into his mouth.
Yeah, that's
and then
a Riccardi drawing. Yep, absolutely.
It's almost like a Basil Wolverton or like Don Martin, just ugly face drawing.
Chris was really good at that.
I think it's the grossest drawing in the episode is them covered in boils and just and thirsty. Like it's you already have a thirsty gag in it, but then they also have to be covered in lesions and boils.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that makes things much more difficult, Bob, when the character changes that much and has so many more details on them. You have to keep consistent throughout a shot.
Yeah, it's a lot of pencil mileage too.
I mean, also, like, I don't know, a kilt, speaking of pencil mileage, that probably isn't easy. Or was that where the digital helps out a bit?
No, that was all hand drawn.
Holy shit.
So you had to just draw in the lines of the kilt then for every frame.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man. That all for just the joke of them being kilted Yaksmen and not Mounties. That's also, those Yaks are pretty clean-shaven in this episode.
It's true. It must have been after Yak shaving day. Yeah. That's right.
I like any joke where Stimpy is missing a huge chunk of his nose. Like, nose violence to Stimpy is some of my favorite jokes, but...
Just a huge piece of meat on his face.
I will tell you, too, that of the shots in this episode that have haunted me since childhood, the bee tearing himself in half excitedly, like, it still chills me.
Just like twisting himself down, like doing a little twist down. Yeah.
Like he's...
and not being distressed about his like imminent death.
He's so happy. Yeah. He's like, I am killing myself for your misery. It's God.
So finally, Ren snaps in our very next clip here.
Filthy, starving, exhausted. Our heroes wearily continue on their search for the great barren wasteland.
Stop! I can't take it any longer. We are out of food and water. I feel I shall starve. If we keep on going, we will surely die. I tell you, we must turn back.
Stop it, man. You mustn't say those things. Remember the royal anthem of the Kilted Yaksmen.
And of course, you heard that part of it during a break. It's a very long song where eventually a choir takes over. And I forget if this is a joke or a realistic credit at the end of the episode, sung by members of the Gay Men's Chorus of Los Angeles.
No, that's real.
Oh, wow.
Awesome. Yep.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah, no, they were, I think someone in the choir was friends with Jim Valentine. Is that right, Thad?
Yeah, that's it. Yep. There's some really cool visuals in this sequence. I don't know how many are in your notes, but Bob's got the best story because of something he added to one of the entrails.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I did freeze frame my way through the lawn cigar flying out.
Yeah, that was animated by Chris D'Amboise.
But you guys added that, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
of course.
And here's the long story that goes with that. So the way Bob Camp told it was that. Let me back that up a bit. I saw Bob Camp on stage telling this story with Vanessa Coffey there. They were both on a slimed panel or something, and Bob Camp mentioned how, Bob and the Carbuncle crew added the lawn cigar coming out of the end trail. And when they were initially screening it with Vanessa Coffey, Bob distracted her, oh, hey, yeah, so how's this going? It looks pretty great. So she wouldn't see it. And this is 20 years after the fact, and he's telling the story, and she's like, oh, no, I saw it.
So she allowed that filth to get on the air.
You know what?
It's funny.
Yeah, but God bless that woman, because I think she was at the point where it's I've got an episode to air. Fine, let him put a piece of shit coming out of an entrail. I've got something on the air.
Well, do you know what's really weird is that there's a shot at the end of the Yaks saluting, and Mary Harrington, who was the other executive on the show, accused us of drawing a dick in that scene. I go, what the hell? And it was just the Yak's tail hanging down. I mean, it was obviously a Yak's tail. But it got misinterpreted as a dick, and for whatever reason.
I don't know, production wise, if this was intended to be a big finale for the show, but I do feel again, Stimpy's Invention was the finale for season 1. That had a song in it. This does too, and I feel like they were trying to get some of that Stimpy's Invention magic here, and it did work on me because I was singing this song at school, especially because it let you say the word hell.
Yes, yeah.
Which is very visible on the screen, even though it is crossed out. But apparently the MTV version of this, you can hear them say hell, the naughtiest word imaginable on TV. But it did work on me, and I can see them not cynically engineering, but it's a finale, let's put a song in, and we don't have to actually write the music because it exists.
Well,
yeah, and it's weird. It isn't even the Canadian anthem. It's God Save the Queen.
Yes. We hear very little of O Canada, except at the very end.
Well, yeah, and Bob, did you think it would be cut?
No, I thought it was going to play as animated. I forget when they decided they were going to take it out, because I know it aired it probably got taken out in reruns. It aired in Canada with hell in it. There was the Canadian version of MTV. It's called Much Music.
Right.
And they were running Ren and Stimpy for a short time. And I remember there were comments about that it running with the word hell in it.
Speaking of a great animation in it, the extra touch there, and you could hear it in the clip as they're walking, Stimpy's nose and tongue are flapping with each step on the yak, and they made a great sound effect for it too. Was that another of the embellishments from Carbuncle?
Sorry, which scene?
Right before the song starts, is they're on the yak, as the yak moves up and down, Stimpy's nose and tongue just kind of slap his face.
Is it the back shot or the?
Oh, it's it's right before Ren's speech when Billy.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Of course, that's an embellishment. Yeah. No, they never put anything like that in the layouts. It was always up to us what we want to add to make it animate.
It's interesting.
Although every once in a while they'd add something particular that they were looking for, but generally speaking, we had free reign on that sort of thing.
It's interesting that this song is kind of a cheat in two ways. It's a great song and lots of great animation and great moments, but it's Stimpy sings it and then another group of people sing the same song after him.
But it helped me remember it.
Definitely did.
As did the sing along with the bouncing Ren. Did you guys know they were gonna put that? It was gonna be a sing along type thing too when you were doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we had one animator do that all by himself.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was a digital effect or what, like how it was being done.
No, we had it all done by one guy.
Wow. That's a lot more. But yeah, like just there's so many moments in this. I don't know, like it's a 2-minute sequence and it's all like visual. But like there are so many little moments that are just still in my head. Like I love Ren's neck extending for Roy Oi Ul.
Yes.
Very, very funny. And I just love how that works on the screen.
The way Ren warms up to the song, and also anytime Stimpy, in a very fey way goes like, that's it. Like that always makes me laugh. But yeah, the Ren's extension of his neck on Roy Oi Ul, always, it's one of my favorite drawings in the whole series.
Cool. Bob Camp hated that.
I love it so much. Was that part of the layout or was that added?
I don't recall, honestly. Okay. We may have added it because for the most part, and if my memory is correct, the layout was very sparse on this episode. So it was trying to make it a longer episode and having to add extra stuff to make it a longer episode.
I also really love their sand-chafed bottoms. Like that's it's always, I always get a good laugh at Ren and Stimpy when they get butts for some scenes and then in other scenes no butts.
And other callbacks in this episode. I mean, there wasn't that much Ren and Stimpy content at this point, even though we're at the end of season 2. But we see callbacks to things like the Croco Stimpies are back, and the Canadian versions are flying.
I'm seeing double here. 4 Muddy Mud Skippers.
Wow, that's true. Yeah, Muddy Mud Skipper, another callback.
And also, every time I see the shot of the mosquitoes growing on their back, I keep expecting they're like going to explode into blood, but they get so close. They get really big.
Somebody's hand smashes them. We're not sure who.
Yeah, that was added.
Okay. Yeah, but
we put that. In fact, we added a lot of visual gags to this episode.
On the bones will bleach in the sun. The second one, where it is their bleach bones, that's another one that is a shot that is stuck with me forever too.
Yeah, this song, I mean, watching the show again as an adult, I guess I'm realizing now just how cynical it is, and maybe some part of me picked up on that as a kid, but I like the gross out drawings and the great animation and the great voices, but now I'm just like, this song is about signing up to die for your country. You won't get buried. You will just suffer, and then you'll go to hell.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, I love how it's just like, and we will probably go to hell.
And that is bleak. A great reward. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, that is, I want more messages like that on kids' TV.
Their excitement at it too. Yeah, this is harsher than their army their boot camp one.
That's true. Lots of anti-military statements in Ren and Stimpy.
And don't forget burning the Constitution and Bill of Rights.
Oh, that's right.
One of my favorite shots too.
These dusty old papers.
Oh God, yeah. Well, and also like when they pull out their giant mugs, I would guess that would have been a censor note to make it spruce beer on it.
No.
Well, spruce beer actually exists.
Oh. It's real beer.
Well, wow.
I looked up that it could be non-alcoholic or alcoholic.
Wasn't that something John would make people drink, and it was really nasty, and he wanted to test people of what kind of person they are? I seem to recall that as being a story.
Yeah, honestly, I don't remember, but I know he used to talk about drinking it when he was a kid.
Yeah, but it was like if you pretend.
Well, it's the equivalent of ginger beer, and ginger beer is nasty.
Yeah,
I'm a fan, but
I'm anti.
It's very spicy. It's very spicy. But yeah, any other highlights from this segment, Bob, before we continue? Again, it's very good. It's a very great little song. I was saying earlier, like, I wish it was at the end, but I can see why it's here, because you need some moment of, like, hope and energy for the characters, but otherwise it would just be suffering until the end.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a good act break to go out on, to get you pumped. Sit through those commercials.
I can't think of anything else to say on this section. I mean, if you have any specific questions, but...
Also, the freeze frame of just the blinking bear, like, that's just a great shot. Going to it twice is
you know
great.
What? Years after the fact, I was talking to Mike Fontanelli, who was the second director on it. He said that was all timed wrong, and I had no input on this, so I just timed it the way it was supposed to be. But apparently it was supposed to be, they were singing the song, and then it was stop dead, and the bear would give a look, and then it'd start up again.
Oh.
And then the song would play again, and then it would stop dead, and the bear would look, and then the song would start up again. I didn't get the joke, And I don't ever remember it being pitched to me that way because John did pitch this board way before we got it to animate. So apparently that's what it was supposed to be originally.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
It works great in its context in this, but
You're waiting for the bear to do something, but it will not participate in any way.
and I mean, also with that the turd that flies out of the intestines. I mean, before it even does that, there's red blood flying off it too, which already I was like, well, that's not, you couldn't do that now.
But yeah, that brings us to the commercial break. You watch your commercials for creepy crawlers and Polly Pockets and Reese's peanut butter puffs or whatever. And then we come back to see everybody's crawling through the harsh Canadian deserts.
Oh yeah, he's still singing the song.
I love that. Yeah, I think dying tired Stimpy kind of sounds like Doug.
Oh yeah,
a little bit of Doug.
Doug is always dying slightly.
Here's an interesting piece of trivia. The animator that did those scenes, some of those scenes of Stimpy and Ren crawling, was actually sick at the time, and he animated those. It's like, I didn't know till after the fact, but he I think he transferred some of his pain into the animation.
It really works with how just beleaguered they look. Yeah, so Stimpy still hasn't given up hope. He's wearily singing the anthem. One yak can't take it anymore, and this is doing the scene an injustice because you need to see how great the animation is on this freak out. But here is the yak losing his mind over this song.
I can't stand it anymore! All the time, singing! Why won't he stop? Listen, do you hear it? Come to your senses, man! This is no time for hysterics. We've got to pull together. Thanks. I needed that. I'm all right now. Good. Now we have to sit down and think how we can find food. All right? Think.
So yeah, the yak breakdown. We don't get a Ren freak out in this episode really. So this is the one that we get. Always the highlight of these cartoons for me as a kid. And please, Bob, who is the mastermind behind this?
That whole section, except for the very last scene, I think the last scene, if I recall correctly, was Chris O'Vey, and the yak freak out and the yak calming down was Kelly, me, and Scott Mons.
Okay, cool.
So Kelly and I split the freak out. She did most of the freak out, and Ren slapping the yak. Scott Mons was really good at horses and anything with hooves. So we gave him a lot of the yak in that cartoon, but he did he's a really good draftsman. He ended up on SpongeBob, and I'm sure he did really well on that show because he's so good. The scene where, if you go back and look at it, Kelly brought this to my attention when she was animating it. The scene where the yak drops to his knees and puts his head out. If you look at the silhouette on that, it's a giant erection.
I was going to say, it's a very turgid neck when he screams.
And it's all veiny.
Yes.
I'll have to go back and check that out.
Yeah, that's one of Chris Riccardi's masterpieces.
I was going to ask, like, are these the most fun to do, or are they just like a lot of work so you only remember the pain that went into them?
No, they're fun to do. Like, I don't begrudge anything it had to do with Ren and Stimpy. I mean, it was all just doing the layouts justice with timing and good animation was rewarding.
Thad, we talked about this in Hermit Ren, but like Chris Riccardi was very hands-on with his later cartoons in terms of like audio editing, and I could hear a little bit of that here in this cartoon. Was he also hands-on with that as early as this cartoon?
I'm sure he was doing a lot of post work. I'm not so sure with this picture, because when I interviewed Chris Riccardi, he was very insistent about talking about his games cartoons, which he had a lot more control over. I'm not so sure if he was adding his own music at this point. It doesn't sound like it, but I mean, he was a hands-on guy, absolutely. But Bob, you had a lot to say about that as far as Chris' involvement with this picture was.
How so?
Well, what Chris always told me is that you should be considered the real director of this cartoon.
Well, he's being generous, but they did drop it into my lap and said, make it work. So, and, we had to extend the amount of time in the episode. I can't take any credit for the layouts. The layouts in the storyboard, that's really a director thing. I think I did do a lot in making whatever I got work, but if he wants to give me that credit, fine, I'm willing to take it.
All the screaming, I definitely feel like this was a tough day for Billy for this. But it feels like there's so much Kirk Douglas in Ren and Stimpy, and I hear a bit of him in this freak out as well. And I think more so even when the same Yak is talking about not wanting to dig. He has some very Kirk Douglas-y faces. There was another earlier I meant to say when I always love when Stimpy's face kind of pulls into itself. There is just a great shot before the song starts of it, and there's another one too right after the freak out of just what Stimpy's face can do in a given situation.
And we were talking about like the flourishes earlier. This is definitely one of them, and you earn that flourish by having the next scene be 30 seconds of no animation or very little animation.
Yes, yeah.
As Ren sits in the classic thinker pose and an entire day passes. I mean, the paintings are very pretty and they're very well done, but nothing is really moving on the screen.
I think Ren and Stimpy really pioneered that, brought that back, just like long holds and pauses, just not just to save money, but just to bloat the cartoon to length.
Just to back up a bit.
Sure.
Those drawings you were talking about, are you talking about the one where he pulls back and he says dirt?
Yeah, that one, and also right before they start the song, he goes like he points his finger in the air and he's like, "We are the Royal Canadian." Like that. The more when he has like cheekbones and a very specific mouth structure. Yeah,
that one where he pulls back and says dirt. That was kind of a reuse of the one in Space Madness.
Right.
And that's...
yes.
That's what John called a bus drawing.
A bus drawing?
It's drawings you do while it's drawings you do while riding on a bus.
Look around you, man. This is Canada.
So?
And what is Canada's greatest natural resource?
Dirt?
Yes! That's it! We'll eat dirt! Now all we have to do is make a divining rod, find a dirt vein in the ground, and eureka! We'll have a dirt feast!
Anytime a male character screams in a little girl's voice, cheap laugh out of me. Just the girlish squealing that comes out of them. But yes, that is their solution. I do love the absurdity of the idea. Just they have to find dirt with a divining rod that they first have to stack food on top of.
When they are surrounded by sand, they're like, well, we're not going to eat sand. We got to find the dirt in this desert. That kind of reality of it, especially the extra frustration to me as a kid, watching them put all this great-looking food on a thing. Like, we're going to find dirt now. We're going to eat well.
Well, that's the irony of it.
Yeah. But as a kid, I was doing what they wanted me to do, of just thinking like, there's food right there, eat it. And also just Ren's smugness throughout this whole scene is so great. Like, I just love anytime Ren even has an ounce of authority, he becomes a true monster. And you get a little bit of that in here too.
But he does save Stimpy from eating poison dirt.
Well, so that's shit. He's eating shit, right? Like,
I always assume so. Is that the answer,
you
Bob?
would know.
Gosh, I don't know. No, I just thought they were. I honestly thought they were dirt cakes. So
he is licking the dirt like he does lick the hair off that man's back.
Yes, yeah. That's a great little shot to me because it feels like the rare times where Stimpy like actually looks like a cat, the way he's He looks like a cat finding a thing they're not sure if they want to eat, and they look back and forth, and then he gets on all fours and starts licking away at it. And yeah, to me that looked like
that's the scene you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I got it confused. Yeah, I animated that scene.
Oh, cool.
I love that. Well, that looks like shit that he's eating. I mean, it is a beautiful drawing.
On his tongue? Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Well, I never intended it to be. I just, it was sort of following the layout.
It's night soil, as they call it.
Bullshit.
Look, you guys got enough stuff on me this
Stimpy's
episode.
Rimming someone. You know it. You know it.
Whoa, God. But yeah, the way he says poison dirt and smacks it out of his head too.
It's great.
Yeah, that's my scene.
It's great, like floor is lava kid logic. Like, don't eat the poison dirt. But yeah, there's almost a mutiny as Ren leads them to find dirt. The Yaks are thinking about having a mutiny, and one kind of just plants a shovel in the ground to prove, like, I ain't working.
I love how he says, like, I'm going to stay right here. And he has to point at the ground, but because of their hooves are drawn to just have, like, 2 fingers, basically, there's just, like, another finger standing to the side. I like the anatomy on that, too.
And that's when they strike dirt. And they're going to eat well this night before the cartoon wraps up.
Yeah, the oil derrick explosion of dirt from the ground is another just great drawing. They're so excited by this pile of dirt they finally found.
Great silhouettes on that scene, too.
Yeah, we had a special effects animator for this short.
Ooh.
Oh, really? Okay.
And you know, we usually never scrimped if we needed special effects, we would hire somebody to do them. Like he did that scene and all the yak saliva and
oh yeah,
probably something else that he did. Oh yeah, the last shot with all the car exhaust.
Okay, so like smoke and liquid and those kind of effects?
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
The bubbly...
Well, character animators hate animating that stuff, and it's just a burden to them. So the logical thing is to get somebody that actually enjoys doing it.
That makes sense. Yeah, I also, you from the yak freak out, the bubbling, like frothing saliva in his mouth is an extra great touch.
So yes,
and that was really difficult for him to do because the stagger was irregular on the yak. Like I think it was a 3-frame cycle, but it was like it wasn't a regular cycle. It would go 1 3 2 1 3 2 1 3 1 2 1 2. So he had to go each drawing and animate it sequentially.
It was definitely worth the extra work. I love the froth on that yak.
Dinner is served. Fried dirt cakes and dirt on the cob. Huh?
Oh boy, here we go. All right. Wait! We forgot to say grace. Father, we thank you for this heap of dirt thou hast bestowed upon us.
Amen.
Let's eat!
Great dirt eating animation. And
God, yeah.
I always like, it seems to happen a lot in Ren and Stimpy where a character will pray. Just get down on their knees and pray to God.
I've always found that fascinating how they got away with that, because when I do a lot of work with Disney characters, like one big no-no is no references to God or a higher power. Like I'm surprised, like I had Scrooge McDuck say, "God-forsaken rock," and it went through, so no one was looking. But usually, you know, praying, any sort of religious thing is usually frowned upon.
The
children's stuff.
It's extra funny. I mean, just to pull it out a little longer, that they're making you wait this long to watch characters eat dirt. Then on top, you have to see him pray and thank God for the shit they're about to eat.
Dirt feast.
Well, another of my favorite, like, just shots in this is when after Ren, says his thing and there's like an amen, he looks like he's out of like a glossy old Hollywood picture, like a shot that like from a Frank Capra movie. I love that shot. Hearing Billy West say "served," I just love that too. Like his little choices on pronunciation always give me a chuckle.
Is that a Three Stooges kind of riff, or am I misremembering where that kind of linguistic tick comes from?
I don't know. It could be. It sounds like it could be.
Might be like
Larry Fine.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Oh, and the nighttime rooster howling at the moon. That is another of my favorite shots of
Very
this
good.
too.
Good animation on that. This
Yeah, that was animated by Ron Crown.
It's great.
And this episode, I will say, like, I do like so much about it, but the ending, we've said it kind of trails off at the end, and there's no, like, big gag like there is in Stimpy's Invention or other very good cartoons. It's just sort of like, well, the episode ends now. Like, this is just the ending of the episode. But I like how they at least get some victory. I guess it's implied they find the barren wasteland, or they were always there.
It seems like they declared where they was the barren wasteland by putting the flag there.
And very good. I just like the animation of Ren just like drumming his fingers contentedly on his dirt-filled stomach.
Oh, that's based on my assistant.
Ah.
He used to come back from lunch with an extended belly, and he'd drum it with his fingers.
just
so
how
the guy who animated it, I just asked him to copy that action.
That's great. Just how contented Ren looks, and Stimpy's like rubbing his belly like he's pregnant almost.
Yes. Yeah.
Pregnant with dirt.
Well, and just the design of Ren in his, beat up hat and filthy boxers and nightshirt. Just he looks like the dirtiest dirtbag too. And yeah, they all slept under the sun. Like the way the sun even appears on Ren, like the way the shadow goes away, like that is great animation there, just on the sun hitting his sleeping bag.
Gosh, I don't have a lock on the visual, but I trust your judgment.
So we get to our next and final clip of the episode. It's where the episode wraps up with what exactly becomes of Ren and Stimpy, where we talked about this in several episodes. One other thing I like about the show, recalling it and then watching it as an adult, is like, oh, there are so many episodes where one of them dies or they both die, or there's like a dual suicide, or at least one suicide, which is, again, not going to happen in post-90s kids cartoons.
I think the history eraser button should count as a suicide or a murder-suicide, I guess, because Stimpy presses it.
I would say murder-suicide.
Yeah.
It's the rare Ren and Stimpy murder-suicide. Let's hear this final clip of what Canada is all about. Here we go.
A belly full of dirt, a twinkle in your eye, and a pine bow in your kilt.
And so, with gratitude in our kidneys and a sense of security in our pockets, we must not forget that we owe it all to those two heroic men, whose names I can't remember, but nonetheless did not give their lives in vain for the Royal Canadian Kilted Yaksmen!
So I guess 150 years pass as they're saluting and dying, and we see all of their hard work led to a horrible overpass that's polluting the sky and land with, smog. So
again, another one that disturbed me at the end of like, oh, I guess they're dead. I guess as a little kid.
And the announcer doesn't know their names.
Lost to history. Their city wouldn't be there without them, but nobody cares. But nobody cared enough to even remove their bones.
Nope.
But as the song told them, their bones will bleach in the sun, and they sure did. That is what happened to their bones. And one last Canadian for the road too. From Bill there.
We only had about 3 or 4, but I do like that. And I was curious about the season 2. Like we know when John K was let go, and it did seem very inconsistent as to which episodes had John K for the entire length of the episode. When in this one we heard earlier, Bob Camp replaced John for some of the singing stuff. I guess he wasn't around for, but this episode consistently throughout had him as Ren, but some of the previous ones did not.
Well, they were recorded out of order. So.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering that. Because A Visit to Anthony has a few scenes that has Billy as Ren, and it was really disruptive to my brain as a kid. What's happening? But yeah, that is the end of our discussion about the Royal Canadian Kilted Yaksmen. Any final thoughts from you, Bob, on working on this cartoon? Any final thoughts from you, Thad, on being a very close observer of this cartoon?
Gosh, I don't know.
I mean, I would say, were you, for seeing this again for the podcast, were you traumatized again by the mistakes, or were you able to enjoy it as a viewer?
Well, this cartoon was almost mistake-free.
Oh, awesome.
In fact, I can't think of any off the top of my head. And I think it was because I was down at MetroCell supervising the ink. I was down at MetroCell supervising the digital ink and paint. So I caught the mistakes as they were coming up. And I'm pretty sure I caught them all. There may be one or two that slipped by, but nothing that pops out like, say, Man's Best Friend, or what's another one that got hit? Sven Hoke. This one was pretty much mistake free, so I was pretty happy with it. I mean, it was a really fun episode to do, despite the fact that we had to do it and that we didn't get a visit to Anthony.
Not a visit to Anthony. That's how he sums it up.
And I guess I forgot to ask this, but like, how long did a production on something like this take you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I forget. Thad, you would know better than me.
Didn't you have like a month and a half or so to do it?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm trying to think. Trying to think. We got it at the end of '92, and
yeah, you got it in December, and it went into January, right?
We finished in February '93.
Yeah, there you go. So actually, it was. I think it was 6. It was a 6-week turnaround on the animation for the Korea studios, and trying to think. Well, that was for 10 minutes, so you guys probably had a little longer for that.
Wow.
For this one.
Well, now I guess that too. Your final thoughts?
Yeah, like how does this? What is this episode in terms of like the legacy of Ren and Stimpy? Like, how do you view it?
Well, I mean, it's the end of the golden age. Let's face it. John Kay is gone. Jim Smith is gone. And now Bob Jacques is gone from it. So, yeah, I've been sort of viewed as an ardent defender of the games era, but I have my quips and my nits and picks with it, and it just simply wasn't up to this level. And huge reason for it was Bob Jacques and Kelly Armstrong's Carbuncle Cartoons wasn't on the show anymore.
Definitely agree.
That's it, and I think every single person involved with the show would agree with that.
We were also competition for Rough Draft, and I remember Jim Ballantyne telling me that I think it was Greg Vanzo would come in, and he said, well, next time we're going to do a Carbuncle quality episode. So I think we kept the level of animation high until we stopped working on the show, or tried to keep it high. Let's put it that way.
I love hearing that it pushed. It was pushing others to do better, and it's like that. What iron sharpens iron quotes that I hear stupid people say. But
well, you know what the weird thing about this episode is people always talk about the animation, but there's not that much animation in it. It's just where it's put. And this is when I try to teach people how to do this sort of animation, I said it's not about the amount of animation, it's where you put it and what you do with it.
And like you're able to, it's a resource you have to spend in the right places, kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess so many of the poses that we saw, there's not a lot of drawings behind them, but just such a strong pose, or a few drawings that work really well. And then we have the more intricate stuff like the Yak Freakout, where you have to save your drawings for that scene.
Yeah, you save your energy for where you need it. I liken it to like a Roadrunner cartoon. The coyote stands around a lot of the time making expressions, but when he moves well. When the Roadrunner moves, it moves well.
Well, this is a very fun chat, Bob. We'd love to have you back for more animation chat. You obviously have a huge history with animation and so much to say and so much to teach us as mere observers, not even on Thad's level. Thad is so much further above us. We just like to watch cartoons. But please, Bob, talk about what you're working on, where we can find you online, and the Patreon you do with Thad. I really enjoy the podcast, and I recommend all of our listeners listen to Cartoon Logic, because both of you handle cartoons that are different than the ones that we handle with a different amount of expertise. So I really recommend everyone go out and find that podcast. And I'm a patron, and I love all your Patreon stuff you do there.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. We
Thanks
really
so much. Yeah, let me do the shill, Bob. So yeah, we do Cartoon Logic. That's our bi-weekly podcast about the golden age of animation, and we do a huge array of topics, as limited as it may seem. But we also have a Patreon at patreon.com/cartoonlogic. You can back us at the $5 and $10 level, and you'll get access to all sorts of goodies, like our video commentaries on different cartoon shorts. Once in a while, I might have a rare copy of something. I'll put it up for you guys to download. And we also started doing our Spinach Scrutiny podcast, which goes year by year examining the Fleischer Studio Popeye cartoons. We just put up the year 1934, and the best is yet to come, because as we discuss in depth on that show, this is just a series that really holds up to today's scrutiny, despite being some... Oh my God, Bob, those cartoons are almost 90 years old now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's amazing how rich these cartoons are, re-examining them all.
Yeah, I've been having a great time rewatching them and listening to the podcast to get way more out of them than I normally would.
Well, thanks, guys. Yeah, so and I guess that's it.
Yeah, does Bob have anything he wants to plug, or anything you're working on now, Bob?
Just Cartoon Logic.
Okay.
I mean, we hope to...
he wants to get to your level one day.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I find you guys are really eloquent when I listen to the podcast. You guys do a great job, and you have great voices, which really, really helps.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
So thanks again to Bob Jacques and Thad Komorowski. We love having them on the show. Bob is a first-timer, and he obviously knows so much about animation. He'll definitely be back for a future episode. But as for us, if you want to support our shows and get every episode 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons and sign up at the $5 level. You'll get just that, but also access to everything behind that $5 paywall. That includes all of our limited miniseries. The most recent one was Talking Mission Hill. We went through all of Mission Hill and the lost episodes in a 13 or 14 episode miniseries that is only behind that paywall. And once you sign up for $5, you'll get access to everything immediately. Everything we've done for the past 3+ years will be at your fingertips when you sign up for $5 at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. There are over 100 bonus episodes waiting for you there. But Henry can tell everybody out there what's happening at the $10 level. That includes one extra long podcast once a month that is only for patrons of that level or higher.
That's right. Bob's talking about the What a Cartoon Movie, where we cover a different animated feature film in the same style as Talking Simpsons and What a Cartoon. If you enjoy this but wish it was twice as long about an animated movie, you'll hear that on What a Cartoon Movie. Recent ones have included The Black Cauldron and also Space Jam, where Thad was on that one as well in the history segment, really helping us figure out the proper context for where the Looney Tunes were back in 1996. So please, if you sign up, you get those two, all our recent ones, and a back catalog, I think probably over 90 hours of movie chat on top of all the other stuff Bob mentioned at $5 a month. So please sign up. $10 a month, patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
So as for me, I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. My other podcast is Retronauts. That is a podcast about classic video games. Find that wherever you find podcasts, or go to patreon.com/Retronauts and sign up there for 2 exclusive episodes every month. Again, patreon.com/Retronauts. Henry, how about you?
Hey, I'm Henry Gilbert, and you should follow me on Twitter at HENEREYG. I have tons of fun tweets you'll want to stay abreast of. Also, if you'd like to know when new stuff comes out on this podcast or our sister podcast, Talking Simpsons, please follow the official account of this at Talk Simpsons Pod. If you follow that, you'll know when new episodes go live on the Patreon, on the free feed, whenever there's new exclusive interviews or any other things going on with us at Talk Simpsons Pod. On Twitter, we'll keep you in the loop.
Thanks so much for listening, folks. We'll see you next week for our extended preview of the What a Cartoon Movie episode about Ghost in the Shell, and we will see you then.
This is the true life drama of the legendary Royal Canadian Kilted Yaksmen. We salute these brave men and their famous motto, we always get our butts kicked.